take projection.
Welcome everybody to Taking On Sports. I am TD. That is Greg. Greg, how you doing, man?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. Hot Sunday here in Birmingham, but what can you do? It's August in the South.
All right.
But we inch ever closer and closer to the start of college football, folks. It's almost here. It's so close that we can taste it. In fact, I think it's this upcoming Thursday, the
Is
first
it?
games. Yeah,
I think Saturday. Week
Saturday.
0, I
They're
think, starts Saturday.
So Saturday, I wasn't sure if there was somebody snuck in
I don't think so. I
a
think it's
game real quick.
first game is outside that game in Ireland.
The Florida State,
Georgia
Georgia
Tech,
Tech.
Florida State. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, there you go. So we're recording this Sunday night, and then so it's a little less than 6 days away.
Right. We're there.
We'll be there. Yeah, it's only week 0, but hey, it's football.
Yeah,
You got,
some.
like I said, Florida State, Georgia Tech from Dublin,
Yeah.
Montana State, New Mexico, SMU, Nevada, and Delaware State flies all the way across the country to Hawaii.
For the nightcap.
Yeah, for the nightcap. Good old classic Hawaii. We, of course, here last week we started our preview. We talked about how conference realignment was going to affect the season on the field. And, we kind of talked about the new 12-team playoff, how that would affect some teams. And we looked a little bit at some Big 12, Big 10 stuff. But we'll go specifically. We know where we are. We know who our audience is. It is our SEC and Alabama preview. I think I mentioned last week when I've seen the analytics for our show, and it is by far, last year's version was by far our most downloaded show. Yeah.
Nice.
It's like huge. It's pretty funny to watch numbers. But yeah, we'll start right there. We'll start with our boys in Tuscaloosa, of course. Last year, SEC championship, kind of a surprise one. Going into the season, a lot of people have predicted like 4, even 5 losses in some places. A lot of folks were, questioning the quarterback, and rightfully so. We didn't know what we were going to have there. And then Jalen Milroe turned out to be a stud, and defense got its act together. And lo and behold, they beat Georgia, won the SEC title, and were a couple bad snaps away from winning the Rose Bowl. And then I don't know, anything interesting to happen to Alabama in the offseason, Greg?
Couple of things. Couple of things.
Of course, the GOAT, Nick Saban, called it quits. Announced his retirement shortly after that Michigan Rose Bowl loss, much to the dismay, surprise, heartbreak of Alabama fans everywhere, and then much to the delight and celebration of college football fans at every other school.
Yeah.
It was a great era, the greatest run in college football history. We, we've talked about this, of course, but as Alabama fans, it's perspective now, and we got to reset our expectations, and we begin the Kalen DeBoer era. And it's just about adjusting. What's the new Alabama going to look like? It's we've seen some of it, the effects on the practice field and recruiting. He's doing a killer job recruiting.
Yeah.
But let's start specifically. Let's just look at our schedule real quick. Start Western Kentucky at home. Then we get USF. That was the maybe even aside from the Texas loss, maybe the low point of last season was the 17-3 win over USF in Tampa, an ugly game, and just had a lot of Alabama fans scared. And then we go at Wisconsin September 14th. It'll be a fun out-of-conference game, maybe a tricky one, a good first test. Then they get a bye week, and then the big first test for Kalen DeBoer. Georgia comes calling, the Tuscaloosa first SEC game. Here you go. And then we go at Vanderbilt, South Carolina, at Tennessee, Missouri, bye. Then at LSU, Mercer, at Oklahoma, and Auburn. Greg, what do you make of that schedule? What are your kind of initial reactions to it? And is it really bad, really kind of in the middle? Oh, you're on mute there, Greg.
I would say it is definitely a little tougher. Maybe a little tougher than what we normally have. Just because you look at that November schedule. For most of our lives, Mississippi State was our November
Mm-hmm.
game in between Auburn and LSU and Auburn, and now this year we're going to Norman. That's a big that's a big change in that aspect of it. And some of it. It looks. On paper, it's I would say one of our tougher schedules. Because you look at some of the teams. Missouri's. This might be one of the better Missouri teams, the
Mm-hmm.
best Missouri team that we've probably ever played as since they've been in the SEC. Um, but of course, going to add Tennessee. Well, we know what happened last time, and Tennessee's been killer at home. Going to Baton Rouge. I mean, so some very some big road games, and then that third game of the season at Wisconsin. One we should win there, but interesting. Not often that we travel to the Big Ten country, so that'll be interesting in itself there. So,
Yeah, I
but
guess it would be our first road game at a Big Ten team since we went to
Penn State,
Penn State. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Often we've had those big neutral site games kind of start the season. We've kind of gotten away from that, going to more home and home type games. So it's interesting. What place to go there. Camp Randall, a lot of history, a great fan base. So, but nothing super crazy because hell, we go all over the SEC every week. So it's not something they've never seen before. So this is not really earth
Yeah,
shattering
no.
as far as that. Just a little different as far as going to Big
Mhm.
Ten country.
No, but it's
And then
it's a unique
non-conference. Yeah,
challenge. Yeah, it's a
yeah, it's
unique
cool.
challenge. It's September at least, so we don't have to deal with like snow or anything.
Super cold or anything, right?
Um, but it's a Wisconsin team, like you said, we should beat. We're more talented, but they're out to prove something. 7-6 in both of Luke Fickle's first two seasons. They're looking to make that kind of leap.
Right,
Back into the upper echelon of the Big Ten. They got
right.
Miami transfer Tyler Van Dyke, who a couple years ago, a lot of the quote unquote experts had him as a top draft choice. One of the
Yeah,
top quarterbacks going to draft. So
that great year, Miami.
that
Two was
that
it 2 years
talent's
ago?
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
2 years ago. Last year, disappointing year for him, but
yeah.
um, he's a talented kid. So that's
He is.
not a game that they're going to sleep on. I don't think.
No,
Obviously
I think.
they'll be prepared. I think, but
Yeah, for sure.
it's a brutal road schedule, just 4 road game or
It
5 road
is.
games. But you go to Wisconsin, Tennessee,
Yeah,
LSU, Oklahoma, and then Vanderbilt's the fifth one. But so um,
nothing. No, yeah, definitely
yeah,
a tough. A tough out of conference, and then even well, away from as a comment away from Brandon, definitely tough, and
hmm
some interesting games even in Tuscaloosa. Of course, Georgia coming to town, obviously
hmm
number one in the country. Missouri coming to town. They definitely put on the show last season. A little different because their running backs not there. Defensive coordinator went to LSU, but that offense should still be quite capable there with Burt and the quarterback
hmm
coming back. So that dynamic offense. And then who knows what South Carolina will look like? We really don't know.
yeah,
But
it's yeah, that's a tough kind of conference stretch there. It's kind of a couple
yeah,
unknowns, like you said. What does South Carolina look like? The Missouri games right after the road games, Tennessee, which I'm sure will be emotionally and physically draining.
right.
Um, we play one, two, three, four teams coming off of buys this year.
Hmm.
Although it's not too bad because one of them is Georgia and we have a buy before as well.
Right.
One's LSU. We also have a buy.
We all.
Um,
That's every year.
yeah, one of them is Oklahoma, but we have Mercer the week before, so that's kind of like a buy.
Kind of a right.
And then the other is Vanderbilt, so which we played Georgia before, but again, Vanderbilt's not a very good squad
No,
right now, so
right.
that shouldn't.
Shouldn't be a
If this
problem.
is kind of James Franklin era Vanderbilt or Jay Cutler Vanderbilt, I might be a little
Right,
concerned,
right.
but
We're not there.
yeah,
They're not there.
yeah,
So,
this one should be fine. But yeah, I think I agree with you. It's a tougher schedule than we're used to. Um, and just because I think of the road games, the addition of that Oklahoma game, like you said, there is no Mississippi State on the schedule this year. No Ole Miss.
yeah.
Kind of
No,
weird to
Ole
see some of
Miss.
that with the new
Yeah,
additions.
no. When we've been playing A&M, of course. So no Aggies, no Mississippi schools. But we knew that was coming, but it still looks weird on paper. Once you
Yeah,
actually to it, and we talk about it all the time, but you get down to it, you're like, man, that's so different. But
yeah. But yeah, it's gonna be some work for the Tide to get
right,
to Atlanta
yeah,
this year to be one of those top two teams. Of course,
definitely
again,
is.
no more divisions in the SEC.
Right.
Um, let's go to. We'll start with the offense here. Of course, that's what Kalen DeBoer is. He's an offensive coach.
Yep.
Michael Penix Jr. just absolutely amazing for him at
Yep.
Washington. In that he was actually his coordinator at Indiana when he was there.
Yeah.
Um,
Before his injuries, I mean, he was dynamic passer and
yeah,
runner Indiana.
yeah.
So
And then he turned him into just a great pocket passer, very accurate guy. Uh, so I think, of course, our first we got to start with Jalen Milroe. How does we've seen some stuff in the offseason, some videos. He's adjusted his throwing motion.
hmm
He seems very excited to play in the system. Uh, how do you think Jalen will work in the system? Is it going to be an adjustment period? Will DeBoer, is he the kind of guy that will maybe adjust his scheme a little bit, add a little bit more running to it? Are you excited to see him in this system? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I like it. I just think that this is probably the first time that Jalen's had an very capable offensive staff. Of course, he
Hmm.
wasn't started with Bill O'Brien was there, but we know how we feel about Bill. If you've listened to our podcast, you
Yeah,
got an
for
idea how
sure.
we feel about that. Last year, I thought for most Alabama fans thought the offense was very lacking, and I think some of it, Tommy Reese just I think he was over his head a lot of the season, and I don't think he wanted necessarily Jalen to be the quarterback because we saw the USF game. Jalen didn't play, and I think Reese really was really trying to push his guy from Notre Dame to be their quarterback, honestly.
Hmm.
And I don't think he necessarily knew how to use Jalen Milroe. I think Jalen has a much more capable coaching staff this year as far as the offensive. With the wide receiver coach, OC, Nick Sheridan, and of course, Kalen DeBoer's offensive prowess. I mean, I think I'm excited. I mean, I think they're gonna open up things that we know are there. That we just haven't seen in a little bit.
Hmm.
I've said it a couple of different places. Mine, I think that this is probably going to be our most dynamic offense since Sark left. Honestly,
Yeah, I agree. I'm very excited to see Jalen in it. I've liked what I've seen with some all-season
hmm
stuff. I think, I think he's going to be, he's already kind of, on the Heisman watch list. I think he's going to be a major
hmm
player in that. I think he's going to have a great year. So I'm really excited. I think the question on offense is, where do our playmakers come from? Who's going to
yeah,
emerge?
right,
Lost a couple, Jason McClellan transfers out. So the backfield now belongs to Justice Haynes. And he showed a lot of promise and
yeah, and
flashes. Jan
right,
Miller's back
him,
there. He's got a lot of speed.
yeah,
And we got a couple, highly touted freshmen and recruits coming in.
right.
Um, Jason McClellan, sorry, did not train. He drafted. Roy
Yeah, no,
Del
he
Williams
dropped
transferred.
Roy
That's
that went
yeah,
to Florida State. Yeah,
yeah. That's how I'm thinking. But and then with receivers, we it's a thin group.
right.
Isaiah Bond went to Texas, lost a couple guys graduation. So now it looks like Kobe Prentice's time to step up. Um,
hmm
Kendrick Law, and then we
Yeah,
got Jeremy Bernard, a transfer from Washington, so that's good. He
right.
knows And then, of course, the big one, Ryan Williams, the 5-star big
Yeah,
recruit. He was kind of like the first litmus test of the DeBoer regime.
yeah,
Was
for
he was
sure.
able to
Huh.
keep him committed, got him into Tuscaloosa, and now we're
Mm-hmm.
by all accounts, he's the real deal. Kind of, best case scenario for Bama fans, he's like the second coming of Julio Jones,
Right,
and he's really something you can start your program, build it around, and kind of
right,
announce your intentions.
for
Um,
sure.
is there anybody in particular you're looking to emerge this year, kind of really become the spark plug for this offense?
You know what? Honestly, I think we have a lot of offensive talent. I think we've had a lot. The last couple of years, everybody's oh, the wide receiver room is down. I don't think it's necessarily the offense. The wide receiver room was down. I just think they didn't know how to use the offense. I think just Bill O'Brien wa- just didn't know how to change or adapt to what he had. There was a lot of potential. I don't think that ever got used. Last year, I thought the offense was a mess. Um, I think we have quite a few capable wide receivers, and we're going to see them, open up. They're going to have legit chances to show, turn potential into actual things. I think Kendrick Law. I'm excited to see what he does in this system. He's shown
Mm-hmm.
flashes of good things. I've heard Emmanuel Henderson's had some good practices. We've seen Kobe Prentice do some okay things, but never really have anything great. You know, I, I'm excited, of course, and I think everybody said about Ryan Williams. Fall camp. Supposedly he's had a couple big time practices and had two 100-yard performances for whatever that's worth in fall camp. Not that anybody really able to see that, but that's what they say. Um, I'll also be interested to see how they use the tight ends there.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't much use of it. Last year didn't really seem. I think Dupree was going to use more in his system, so I'd be interested to transfer from Maryland. But I'm excited. I think we have a lot of talented wide receivers who just really haven't been put in good spots. And so it'll be interesting to see how this new staff really uses the
Yeah,
talent.
I agree with the tight ends. It's a good point. I think that's one of the more disappointing parts of Tommy Reese's offense last year was that I
Because
thought
I
we would
thought they
use more
were,
tight ends.
because
Yeah,
that was always a big thing in Notre Dame. They always seem to have a legit tight end.
and they used a lot of like 2, 3 tight end sets. Yeah, they always had
Yeah,
a. I mean, how many tight ends has Notre Dame put in the pros in the last 20 years or so? Like
exactly. Good amount of them.
yeah. So it was surprising to see, and, and that's kind of like an Alabama curse. We have a lot of
Yeah,
these really talented tight ends that just don't aren't really the stars of the offense, which they're not going to be. But guys like OJ Howard, the performances he put up against Clemson in big games, you were like,
yeah,
man, why aren't we doing this week in
exactly.
week out? Or Irv Smith Jr.'s,
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
hopefully, yeah, hopefully that's one thing we can get more. The receivers make the big plays, let the tight ends make their important big catches, let them move the chains.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to see that, and of course, I think a lot of eyes, of course, will be on the offensive line. We get a transfer in at center, Parker Brailsford, another Washington transfer, and I think that's probably the
Yeah.
biggest uh, sense of joy for every Alabama fan is that no more.
Right.
I don't even want to speak his name, but the center transferred to Ohio State,
Hmm.
which we
Yeah.
talked about that last week. That was a shocker to see him go there.
Yeah.
So can't wait for him to cost them a big game at some point.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't remember seeing any bad snaps at Washington last year.
I mean,
Uh,
he was pretty much you know, all, he was all American caliber type center.
mhm.
I mean, so I mean, he's a big get for us. Um, and of course, the other big thing is getting Caden Proctor back. I mean,
Yeah,
because he had, of course, struggles, but at the end of the day, he was a true freshman.
Mm-hmm.
18 years old. I mean, he's a big guy, so of course. But I mean, towards the end of the season, he really started to show that he was, a decent. He was turning into a decent left tackle. When he left to go to Iowa, I was kind of disappointed because I was thinking, man, he was really starting to get to where we expected him to be. He was starting
Mm-hmm.
to become that guy. That was kind of disappointing because kind of you felt like, man, we developed him, and now he's gonna go be an Iowa guy. But of course, came back. So be fun to see him continue to develop because I mean, he was frustrated with him at times, but an 18-year-old kid, and to be fair, coming from Iowa, no disrespect, but how many top tier guys were going in week out in high school? You know,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like he was in Florida, Georgia, Texas. When you're going up against other 5-star, 4-star guys week in and week out. I mean, I'm sure he was heads and shoulders above anybody he went up against in the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
To be honest, so a big adjustment going from that to be a starter at your left tackle in the SEC. So
Yeah, I know. And like you said, it's great that he decided to come back after announcing his initial intention. Or I guess technically he did transfer and enrolled at
he did
Iowa and then
transfer,
came back.
came back, and some people
Uh,
say he did that just to see Caitlin Clark. I remember.
well, hey, hey, can't
It's
blame
just
him if
funny.
that's the case.
All right,
Uh,
all right,
but yeah, so it should be an improved offensive line. By all accounts, the offense should be more consistent. It should be a
right.
real joy to. I mean, a lot of excitement, like
Mm-hmm.
some Tua era excitement for this
Yeah,
offense.
exactly.
I'm really excited, yeah, to see them. The other side of the ball, of course, that's where the biggest adjustment probably
Yeah,
comes from. We go from Nick Saban, who not only greatest coach, but a defensive minded coach. That's where
all right.
his bread and butter was. That's where we made our money, so to say,
Yeah,
as a program. And now
exactly.
it's different. We get in. What is his name? Former South Alabama head coach. He is now our coordinator. Kane Womack. I knew. I was like, he's got a wrestler name. Uh, it's gotta be Kane. Um, we'll see what his defense looks like.
All right.
He's got some work ahead of him. We lost Dallas Turner to the draft.
Yeah.
We lost basically the
All starting
entire
cornerback.
secondary. Malachi Moore is the only one that came back.
All right.
Lost Caleb Downs, of course, big time disappointment. Don't understandable.
Yeah.
If you're a
Yeah. I
defensive
mean,
back and you come to be coached by Nick Saban when he leaves, it's uh,
all right.
you know,
But I think that's the. I think out of every, and I think most people would agree. That's really the only guy that we lost in the transfer portal that's not going to be replaceable,
yeah, yeah, that's a
just
special
because he's
talent.
that type of talent. I mean, we saw it.
Mm.
We saw his freshman year. I mean, he was doing grown man stuff as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was crazy, man. So
But yeah, we're
definitely,
gonna get.
we're definitely gonna miss him. And not a guy you can just replace. You just have to find folks that can, step in and do what they can do. But yeah, definitely not someone you can replace at all. But kind of a new system in Womack. That through a 3-3-5. I mean, we run that at times out of our nickel. With Saban there. So I mean, it's not completely new, but I mean, of course, different wrinkles than what.
Uh, hey, we should be used to 3-3-5. That's the old Joe Kynes defense right there from back in our
Yeah,
day.
right.
Uh, no, yeah, it's we tried to patch those a couple of transfers in to the
Yeah,
secondary. Damani Jackson from
right.
USC.
We
Deshaun
got the
Jones from Wake Forest, Keon Sapp from Washington.
right.
Uh,
So I mean, we got some guys with some talent. Was that
hmm
has some experience. And it's good to at least have somebody come back into um with Malachi. Just because you get that older the older presence there that knows the Alabama system can help the guys out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we got a lot of people that are new to the system, and some of them, even though like Damani Jackson, I mean, technically he's only a I mean, he's listed as a junior, but the way he's like a sophomore because he sat out that COVID year. I think he had
Mm-hmm.
1 year at USC. Uh, so I mean, he's you know doesn't have a lot of miles on him there. So and then we have a lot of talented freshmen, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's some.
There's
I
gonna
think
be,
some guys that'll be some growing pains in the secondary,
yeah.
but I think we have some
Mm-hmm.
guys that are good enough. And by the end of the season, they can be very much a part of the rotation. Because no, what we call the money month, the month of November. And we're gonna need some of those guys to have gone from freshman to, you know, I think we have some dogs, some guys that are ready to, who will be ready to go. Mbakwe, I think, Mincy. I've heard some good things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but we have some younger guys. So it'll be interesting to see what how they develop.
Don't we have? Do we have Drake Kirkpatrick's son on our squad?
We do, yeah,
That, folks, is how Greg and I know that we are getting fucking old.
man, yeah,
A player that was
exactly.
there after we left school
After we get, I mean, yeah,
has a son. Uh,
yeah,
so hopefully he is. If he's half to 75%, the defensive back his dad was, will be all right.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, but that's crazy to get to that point, though.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's something we used to joke about on. If I
mhm,
remember right, some of those old NCAA games on PlayStation 2 back in the day, it had a line that said that would be like, well, you know who his dad is, like he was a great athlete or something like that, and
mhm,
you'd check out the player's name and you would joke about like, oh, that's his last name's Cunningham, oh, that's Randall's son, or
yeah,
uh,
and
and
now
now
we're to
it's
that
that
point.
kind of stuff's real. Yeah.
Yeah,
um, which is insane. Which I think at least for our generation, we've been eased into it a little bit because we're seeing, but
right.
with
We're seeing
baseball, I
more and
feel
more.
like, well,
Yeah, we're
with
seeing it
baseball
more and
particularly
more in
because we're seeing like,
baseball.
yeah,
Yeah,
like with Prince
guys we
Fielder back
grew
in
up
the,
with.
a few years ago, then like Vlad
Yeah,
Jr.'s there now,
yeah,
Bo Bichette, a lot of those guys like that
yeah.
we're seeing
Like what the
the
heck?
Suns,
But it was
and
still
now
crazy
it's
though.
it's really starting to, yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah, back to Alabama. I agree with you. Defense is growing pains. I think that's the key word. Well, we do have an
right.
experienced defensive line, a really experienced defensive
Yeah,
line, I
I
think.
think we,
And then it's going to be guys like Deontay Lawson and Malachi
yeah,
Moore really going to have to lead that defense from a
right.
mental standpoint. They're going to have to be coaches on the field. That kind of cliche, but because we got to replace. We talked about the secondary, but we lost Dallas Turner. We lost a lot of good pass rushers.
Yeah,
And the defensive line, I think, will, especially like you said, in that 3-3-5, they're going to have to. Uh, they're
definitely
going to have to do
different.
some work. We're going to have to, yeah, it'll be different. We'll see what kind of. I'll be honest, I've never really watched South Alabama games. Don't know how aggressive Kane Womack is on defense. But I think, and tell me if you agree. I think we'll probably, at least for the first year, maybe two, Alabama fans might have to get used to winning some shootouts. Um,
But okay. But
yeah,
that's just a way of college football these days, honestly.
that's
I
true
mean,
too. Yeah,
I mean, it's such a explosive offense. I mean, if you can hold a team under 30 these days, you've done a lot of weeks. You've done
yeah.
a hell of a job. So,
Oh, and that just might be it. If this is a defense that allows 21 points a game, that's going to be a good record because
right.
that the offense should be able to score a lot of points,
Yeah.
and so the defense
I would say
this would be
so.
one of those defenses. They bend but don't
Being
break
bit.
type.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
we mentioned
Come up with
Joe
some.
Kynes. I joked about him, but his defenses are a lot of the same way. The solid secondary play,
Yeah.
tough line play, good linebacker. Just smart linebackers. He was what's our boys? Houston's coach. in the NFL. Uh,
Oh, D'Amico.
D'Amico, damn, I just
Yeah,
brain blank right there. Yeah, he was D'Amico's coach, so we know what type
yeah.
of players he
Because
likes.
you look at it. I mean, that when we were in college, that linebacker was nasty. We had D'Amico, Freddie. I
J-
mean, they were
Jawan
killers.
Simpson, yeah, we
Yeah,
had
they were
some
beasts.
solid
We had some great.
linebackers.
Yeah, we did.
Um, so yeah, they're going to have to make I think the big plays like you mentioned. That's
Hmm.
defenses have changed now. It's not you're not trying to pitch shutouts every week. I mean, it'd be great, but this isn't
Yeah,
the
it's
2011
not.
defense.
It's not
We're not
really.
going to see that again.
No, just
Um,
because those offenses have changed so much. I mean,
yeah,
everything's been
exactly.
opened up.
But right now, it's about making stops when it
Hmm.
matters and
Yeah,
making great turnovers, big plays. You have to
right.
you're going to give up some points, but if you make a couple sacks, third down sacks,
All
maybe a
right.
fourth down stop here and there, and of course, a
Yeah,
turnover.
the turnover. Yeah, I mean that's
It's
been
all
our.
about yeah.
I think that the last couple years that's been our biggest downfall.
Hmm.
Is we haven't had the turnovers we became accustomed to. We got big turnovers, so it changed the momentum of the game for most of Nick Saban's tenure. It didn't seem like we've had that as
Hmm.
consistently the last couple years. Some of that, of course, has to do with our defense and who our defensive coordinator was. I mean,
That's
that's
right.
Ole Miss's problem now. So, and, but I did see a weird thing the other day though. It was a thing I saw on Twitter or something. It was the Texans reporter was talking to Will, and Will had said that in the 22 season he felt
Yeah, I saw
lost and
this.
depressed. I was like, what
Hmm.
in the world was going on? Just at times you could see things just weren't right, but man, for him to say that, you're like, what in the world was really going on in that locker room, in that defensive room? My goodness.
Hmm. Well, yeah, it makes I did see that too, and it makes you think. Yeah, exactly. Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
How does that happen? It kind of gives you a little bit of insight into the last couple of years and why Saban, said what he said about retiring, and he was kind of
Yeah.
burnt out, dealing with, uh, the one negative of having the great coach of all time is that his assistants
Hmm.
are going to routinely
Well,
be plucked
yeah.
and poached, and
Yeah.
um,
And honestly, too, I think that was the one, probably the only really great thing with him retiring is we're gonna see more quality assistants coming in
hmm
because there's a lot of questions at the end. Is Nick Saban done? How much longer does he have? Do I want to be there? Do I want to stick out and see how that goes, or do I want to go now? I think, and then some guys, the newer guys, I don't know, didn't necessarily want to be under Nick Saban. They saw, how he, went at his coordinators at times, and expected a lot of them, and some people stayed away from that. Um, but I think this new stat is just, a completely different feeling now. I think it feels way more relaxed, a lot, I don't know, less tense as far as your everyday, just from the interviews and coaches assistants getting interviewed after practice and everything. Just a real different structure. And I think that might bring in more assistance because more welcoming, more. And I think that might be the one good thing is that we're gonna get more quality assistance. Even if a guy does succeed, if with our offensive staff, um, one of them goes on to be a head coach, or Womack, has a hell of a run, and someone picks him up. We're gonna see other guys, better names coming in towards the end because honestly, the last couple of offensive and defensive coordinators were kind of underwhelming choices, I'd
hmm
say. And I think most Alabama fans and college football fans in general would kind of agree.
yeah, for sure. We a lot of us voice that, and with DeBoer, it seems like he's trying to go for these young up and comers, which is what a
Hmm.
lot of uh, people had hoped, Alabama and Saban would do, over
Yeah,
choices like Bill O'Brien or
right.
maybe
And,
pull the
I
trigger on getting Pete Golding out a little sooner.
right. And I think he just, for some reason, it really seemed like Nick really liked Pete.
Hmm.
Like I don't know, it's almost like a father son type relationship. It seemed like in a way, but just to that
Yeah,
point, it just had run its course, and Pete was Pete, and it wasn't gonna
yeah.
get get any
On,
better.
on the field, it's frustrating. I think Pete Golding's allure came from his recruiting. Hell of a recruiter by all accounts, a
Yeah,
closer guy who really gets his big
right.
guys for you. But
Even when we
no,
won the title in 20, the defense was
yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, I remember that Ole Miss game that year. That was one of the more
man,
frustrating, maybe probably
good
the most
goodness
frustrating win I've
gracious.
ever watched.
Yeah,
Non Iron Bowl division,
yeah,
of course,
all right,
because those are always the. But
yeah.
yeah, it's just yeah, it's a new era. It's exciting to see these new staff, these guys trying to make a name for themselves, and
Hmm.
when you have guys, multiple people in this staff, left head coaching gigs. Granted, they were at small schools, but still,
But still, I mean, to
they
leave
left head coaching gigs to be a
a
coordinator.
coordinator, which says a lot about the coach. Says,
Mhm.
a lot about our program that they're interested in wanting to become associated with Alabama.
Exactly. I think that's what a lot of people, you see a lot of younger guys who don't know their ball, as the kids say, chirping online about, oh, Alabama was just Saban. Alabama had history before that too.
Yeah,
It's hilarious. I find that one of the most hilarious arguments against Alabama is like, well, outside of Saban and uh, Bear Bryant, what do they have? And it's like, that's just a dumb argument because we had them, so they count.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
obviously, I mean, there were titles won before Bear Bryant. I mean, of
yeah.
course, Bear restored the program. And then really, I mean, if you look at it, what's the name's tenure is really underrated. Gene Stallings' tenure in
Oh,
Tuscaloosa
he averaged 10
severely
wins a year.
underrated. He won the national title
Hmm.
in what was that, second year?
Third year, but yeah.
Third year? Won the
Yeah.
won the title, beat them. We were supposed to get destroyed by Miami.
Mm.
Absolutely, it wasn't even gonna be a ball game. Dominated them. Yeah, and he had what was the one bad season? What 97?
No, he didn't. He had his first year was his bad year, and it was a winning year.
Right,
I have a
right.
special attachment to Gene Stallings because that's that was my heyday
Yeah,
growing up. I was
right.
like
But
6 through 13 during his tenure there.
criminally underrated as far as what he brought
Oh,
to
absolutely. A national and could have,
Tuscaloosa.
and very close to winning more. In '94, they
Right.
lost to a Florida team by 1 point
Yeah,
in a late
that would have been
touchdown
the
in the
yeah,
SEC
that'd have
title
been the
game. And they were
national title.
unbeaten. Yeah, they would have played, I
Exactly.
think, Nebraska for a national title that year.
Yeah.
'96, they had a 10-win, another close team that
Right.
just unfortunately ran into what ended up being national champion Florida in the SEC title game.
Yeah. So I mean, he went
Nick Gene Stallings won 70 games in 7 seasons. He averaged 10 wins
right
a year.
70,
Um,
16 and one at Alabama.
yeah,
It went 7-5 was his the worst year, and that
that
was
was
year one after.
and you know what? After he started 0-3, so he,
Right.
the rest of the season went seven and
They
two.
still went to
So
the Fiesta Bowl.
yeah,
I
and they
mean,
got housed
and
by
he went.
Louisville, but still,
I mean, he went with 5-1 in bowl games.
hmm
Whole year was
uh,
it when 95 couldn't go to a game. Um,
yeah,
Probation. I mean,
a, a
shit.
lot of memorable
11 and
wins
1 in
there.
91, 13 and 0
Hmm.
in 92, 9-3 and 1 in 93, 12 and 1 in 94, 10
Hmm.
and 3 in 96. I mean, hell.
Hmm.
I mean, these are great numbers. I mean, he's
No, yeah,
criminally underrated.
yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, if that's what we get from Kalen DeBoer, hey, I'm happy with it. But
And in today's
along
world, though,
those, yeah,
I mean,
along those lines, uh, we'll finish up on Alabama with this. What makes this a good season for you?
you know, I mean, I'm being realistic. I mean, I don't think we're going to go undefeated. Honestly, I don't even know if we make the SEC championship game. There's a lot of good teams out there. So the SEC is stacked. This might be one of the most impressive. coming into the season where the SEC has been in a while with how many teams you look at, man, they're really a good team.
Hmm.
Really, I'm looking at, you know, main thing I'm looking at is first thing we look at is that Georgia game. How competitive are we?
Hmm.
I'm not honestly. I'm not expect. That's one of the games I don't expect to win. We very well could win the game, but it's gonna be a little different because I think there was kind of that mind thing with Kirby and Nick in a way. um, so being so how do we look in that game? And then if we don't win that game, how do we rebound from that? And I
Hmm.
think that will kind of determine where we're at for our season.
Hmm.
Personally, I think we're going 10-2. But I mean, I think the main thing is just I was getting better throughout the season, and just no, I just want to see us get back to we're winning, but every week that the last couple of years, every week was almost seemed like, oh my gosh, it
Hmm.
became so. Every week was a nail biter. Oh my gosh, so we could put, I just want to get back to where we're playing good football, but we're winning a little bit more comfortably than what we have the last couple of years. And
Hmm.
also, I think just the last couple of years just didn't seem like people were having fun. Honestly,
No,
um,
yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a lack of on-field leadership. Um,
I just wanted to get back to where people are having fun, where the players patrol themselves, and people get in each other's faces when things aren't going right, and say, "Hey, man, we need to make this happen." We saw that for most of the Nick Saban tenure, where players released players, and that was the biggest thing to get everybody on the same page. I want to get back to that, but I mean, it's going to be some transition. Of course, you go from the greatest of all time to I think he's done a heck of a job everywhere he's been in Kalen DeBoer, but we have to be realistic, and there's going to be some changes, possible growing pains, some new
mhm.
things we've never seen before. But I think most dynasties, the next guy after comes into a room that's the things have deteriorated badly. Uh, the cupboard's empty. It's not pretty. Nick Saban left it in a pretty decent, pristine state. I mean, so Kalen DeBoer has his own style, does things a little differently, but he's coming to a great establishment. Everything's a lot of great players in place. The system's in place. Nothing's really broken. Maybe we'll fix in here and there, but I mean, I
Mhm.
think 10-2 is very realistic and should have us right there in the playoff talk come playoff Sunday.
I yeah, I think I almost beat for beat agree with your assessment there. I think a playoff bid is my floor for a good season. A playoff bid,
Right.
or if we miss it, we were shafted somehow. It's
Yeah.
like, oh
See?
man, that's bullshit.
Right.
But I think we're too talented of a team to not miss it, even in that hard schedule, even in the gauntlet of the
Yeah.
SEC. Um,
Hmm.
it's a 12-team playoff. I think that's got to be our baseline. Um, like you said, Nick Saban didn't leave the cupboard. This isn't a Bobby Bowden at the end of his Florida State run. This isn't some other programs where a historical coach has kind of waned in the last few years of his tenure and kind of let the roster go down or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah. So much
Yeah,
different place than
I
most other
think what I
dynasties. So I like that aspect of it.
yeah, exactly. I think on the field, I want to see the offense be dynamic, like it should be.
Hmm.
He's an offensive coach. We've got
Plenty of
excellent
talent.
players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we've got yeah enough talent the offense should be dynamic. We should score
Hmm.
points. It should be fun to watch. It should be dangerous. It should
Hmm.
be like those kind of 2014 through 2020 offenses at Alabama.
Right.
Those like you're gonna have all these players. You're gonna have you don't know where it's coming from each week,
Right. Be someone different
or
every week.
you got a
Right.
guy like or you got like a Mark Cooper type with those, Lane Kiffin offenses where it didn't matter what the defense did, he was going to get his.
Right.
Um, but and then on defense, I want to see just some stability and not for it to be a complete shit show.
Mm-hmm.
I as long as we understand there's probably going to be a fall off. Nick Saban, greatest coach of all time, great defensive mind. It's going to be different. We're going to have to get used to it. But as long as it's not, as long as we don't become the LSU defense from last year.
Yeah, there's just so much talent there that I think we're gonna be okay. Some of it's, yeah, like you said, it's gonna be different. I mean, it's the first time since 2007 that Nick Saban doesn't have his fingers on that defense. So I mean, it's gonna be weird at times, but I think overall, I think we're gonna enjoy it. I think hopefully the fan base is just patient, just let things play out. Don't freak
Mm-hmm.
out any week or anytime something doesn't go quite right because I mean it's new. It's a new thing. We're gonna get there. And, it might just be a little bit of work, but hopefully when it comes all together, when we get to that tough part, from mid-October to November, by then, I think we'll be ready to go, and that's the most important part of their schedule. Well, you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, cool.
Accidentally hit the wrong button, left the browser.
Oh
But yeah, what
man.
were you saying there? You were wrapping up your thought.
No, yeah, basically I was just saying, folks need to be patient. We might have some, first part of the season, I think just talent enough, we have enough to go into it. We'll be fine in September and October. And, mid-October, November is really when we need some of the younger guys. We really need to have things shored up, ready to go. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's when business really picks up from that Tennessee game on down.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Um,
other thing is, don't free. Even if we were to happen to lose the Georgia game, folks, just don't lose your mind. That's one game. We still have a lot of season after that. So, that's gonna be
yeah,
a big early game. I'm sure games gonna be there. The atmosphere is gonna be crazy, but it's not a be all end all type situation. So,
no, yeah, yeah. I think that's it. One thing I did notice I didn't mention that I want to. Of course, record-breaking kicker Will Reichert finally ran out of eligibility, and
mm,
um, shame
yeah,
for Bama fans everywhere. Just so scarred by years of uncertain kickers and
yeah.
inconsistency, and we get the highest score in NCAA history. But you
hmm
know what? Uh, Alabama went out and replaced with the reigning Lou Groza Award winner. Got a transfer in from Miami
Yeah.
of Ohio, Graham Nicholson. Um, all
Shouldn't lose a
American
beat there.
Lou Groza, yeah. So hopefully, and then we still have James Burnip as our punter, a great punter, and plenty of dynamic return
hmm
guys. So special teams,
Yeah.
we didn't talk about that, but that's because I think it's not a concern. I think we'll have a great special teams
No,
once
I think
again. Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah,
for
so
sure.
that should do it for our Alabama preview. This is a good time to pause it and go take a break if you guys are listening. We'll move on to the SEC now. Uh, so, Greg, what I did for this preview is I divided the SEC into 4 tiers. Tier one
hmm
are our absolute contenders. Let's
hmm
just start there. These are the guys that it's probably one of these 4 teams that's going to win the SEC title. And for that, I have Georgia,
hmm
Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Um, First of all, would you agree with that group?
Pretty close. I mean, I
Yeah.
might put LSU in that mix,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, we're pretty much on the
Yeah.
same.
I'll explain why they're in the next tier when I get to them. But for
Right.
this tier,
Sure.
uh, we just covered Alabama, so I don't really think we need to talk them. But I had 3 questions. I tried to do a question for each team. We'll start with Georgia.
hmm
Uh, is it just a lock? They're in the playoff this year. Like
I
undoubted.
mean, nothing's
Yeah.
a lot. But I
Yeah.
mean, if there's this, I think they're probably as as close as you can get to a lock.
Hmm.
I would say for Georgia, there's people have questioned their schedule over the last couple of years. I mean, it's definitely a tougher schedule than what they've been
Absolutely.
accustomed to as of
Yeah.
late. So I mean, some possible losses on the schedule there, but and they're a very talented team. We all know that. We know how good Carson Beck is as a quarterback. The biggest question for me for Georgia is the wide receivers. We know that the tight end Bowers is going to the NFL. McConkey has gone to the NFL.
Hmm.
The transfer from Mississippi State was kicked off the team
Hmm.
for criminal act. So I mean,
Yeah.
they're probably. I mean, we know there's talent there, but that's always been the biggest question mark as a wide receiver play at Georgia. And honestly, they haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since '03, I think. So I mean, if there's anything that you wonder about Georgia is who's catching the passes this year. I mean, they're still a very talented bunch, but they're losing a lot. They've lost a lot of their uh, receiver production from the last couple of years for sure.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. It's you mentioned the schedule. I'll start with that. Uh, it is a much tougher. I think if I remember from last year, we really got on the Georgia about that week schedule and kind of turned out to be
Hmm.
right. You know, when they played a big time game, the SEC championship, they didn't have they weren't
Yeah.
sharpened. Iron sharpens iron type thing.
Hmm.
But this year it is a tough schedule. They start with a quote unquote neutral site game in Atlanta against Clemson. So you got to be. You would think they're favored easily and should win that, but
Yeah. Should win
it
that
might
one.
be a desperate
Still,
Clemson team. Yeah.
you gotta pay attention. They gotta wake up for it, be ready to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
And then they get Tennessee Tech at home, so obviously that's a drop down at Kentucky, which Kentucky probably will have a
interesting.
little bit of drop off this year. But yeah, it's an interesting game. Then you have a bye week, then you're at Alabama. And this stretch right here, this is a tough one. At Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State,
Hmm.
at Texas. Um,
Yeah.
that's their September through October stretch right there, into September into October.
Hmm. Yeah.
They get a bye after Texas, then they get the cocktail party against Florida. They're at Ole Miss.
Hmm.
Then they finish Tennessee, UMass, Georgia Tech. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not an easy schedule. The out of
No, it's
conference
not.
slate, a couple of with UMass and Tennessee Tech. Okay, there's your win, but
Yeah.
man, that conference schedule
It's not
is
easy. It's not easy.
there's
I
not
mean,
there is not a Mississippi State probably definitely the easiest game in that
probably,
conference schedule. They're gonna be a down
but
year.
Auburn obviously is going to be better this year, even
Yeah,
away from even away from Jordan Hare. It's going to be a tougher game.
yeah.
Doing people are going to be looking at,
Well, especially a week after on the road at Tuscaloosa.
yeah, yeah, win or lose. I mean, you're facing Auburn in the very next week, oldest rivalry in the South.
Hmm.
Weird placement for it. It's still good news to that's not a game in November anymore.
Yeah, right.
But but I mean, so I mean, we know the history of that. It's been some weird ones over the years. But yeah, crazy placement, win or lose the Alabama game. I mean, Auburn
Hmm.
right there, they're gonna be looking for that win. I mean, obviously, Hugh Freeze looking for his first big win of his tenure on the Plains. So I mean, that
Hmm.
right there in itself could be it. We're looking for going to Austin. I mean, that'll be interesting.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, we know just how good that offense has been for Texas. I mean, obviously they lost a little bit in the draft there, but I mean they've got some Alabama. They got Isaiah Bond coming in, the tight end coming in.
Hmm.
So they lost a couple of running back. The running back room is thin. They've lost two to the season already in practice. Fall count, two ACL tears.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good
so
transition into the Longhorns. Yeah, they I was that's what I was going to bring up, man. I mean, Sark's got a ton of weapons on that offense. You mentioned
hmm
Isaiah Bond and Namari Black.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, they've lost a couple of their, and for the season too, like you said,
Yeah.
big time studs at
Couple
running back. So
DCLs.
that'll be something to watch there. Their schedule, it's an interesting schedule for their first SEC year. So they start Colorado State
Mm-hmm.
at Michigan. That'll be a fun out of conference
Yeah,
game early
me
in the
too.
season.
That's interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
UTSA, UL Monroe, Mississippi State round out their first block of games, so they only have to go on the road once. Then they
Mm-hmm.
get a bye week. Then they get the Red River Shootout. Then that Georgia game at Vandy, another bye. Then they host Florida, go at Arkansas, a renewal of that rivalry. Kentucky at home, and then of course November 30th at Texas
Mm.
A&M.
Whew.
I
I
expect
can't wait for that one.
Kyle Field will be
Kyle,
absolutely
this is
insane that
ridiculous.
day.
Oh my god.
I don't care if
From
Texas
that.
loses their first 11 games going into that. If
Oh,
both
they
teams do,
don't
that's
give
going
a
to be
shit.
that's going to be a fun game to watch. My
That is gonna be
question
epic.
for Texas: uh, Are they really, really, really back now? They went to the playoff last year, lost to
Yeah.
Washington. Maybe a game they should have,
Mm-hmm.
definitely could have won. Um,
Could have won.
Beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. It was a big talk of the early season and throughout the season. But now they're
Mm-hmm.
jumping up a class in conference.
Yeah.
We just read through
Yeah.
that schedule. Gone are the Kansas games of the world, and now
Mm-hmm.
you got a
Yeah.
renewal of a
Placing
rivalry.
Iowa State with Georgia.
You got two heated rivalries coming back that you haven't played in a long time
Yeah.
now. That's
You got
gonna.
three bitter rivals in a certain way. I mean,
Hmm.
OU, we know that one. Arkansas, at Arkansas. I mean, it's much bigger to the Arkansas fan base, to be
Hmm.
fair, but
But it was a
and then
fierce rivalry
finally,
back in its day.
it was a fierce rivalry. And we saw the last time they played in Fayetteville. I mean, it was absolutely berserk there. That atmosphere was crazy when Arkansas crushed them a couple years ago.
Hmm.
Was that Sark's first year? um, Absolutely crazy atmosphere. And then, of course, we know what November 30th brings. I mean, the Aggies have been waiting for this for God knows how
Hmm.
long. They have that circled like no other.
Yeah, that's going to
But
be. Yeah, that we cannot stress how much that is just going to be an insane environment. So much.
but I
Go
would
ahead.
say, but I mean, you know, just that you go from your big Red River game against OU.
Hmm.
And then the next week, there's no break. You go to Georgia comes to town.
Hmm.
I mean, that's just what the SEC is. I mean, that's
Hmm.
I mean the different thing for the new guys to the SEC is there's no break. I mean, you don't have the luxury of maybe playing Baylor the next week, or no disrespect to Baylor. I mean, they've had some good years, but it's a big difference. Your red rivalry game. You put so
Hmm.
much into that game, such a heated rivalry. Win or lose, I mean, you put everything into that game, and then Georgia comes to town the next week.
Yeah, exactly. That's
That's something in itself.
yeah, that's tough. Then you got just that finish we talked about, that Florida at Arkansas, Kentucky at A&M. That Kentucky game, that's one of those again that stands out as
Who knows?
you're in between two heated rivalries. Both of them are road games. That
Mm-hmm.
screams trap game.
Right.
Kentucky's just a
And we,
well coached team, a talented team.
yeah,
That's yeah.
yeah, yeah, you never know. And another thing with Kentucky. I mean, and the other thing with that schedule too is we don't know what Florida is going to be in November.
Hmm.
Honestly, I mean, it's been well documented how tough a schedule that they have, and people don't expect the most from them. But I mean, if Florida excels, and they
Hmm.
much better than what people think, that game could be very tough, depending on what the mindset is in November. I mean, if they're, I mean, they have a schedule there where they're, oh my gosh. But I mean, if they are better than what they were, I mean, you look at last year. I mean, they ended up with 5-7 on the year, but so many games they could have won.
Hmm. No, yeah,
They
we'll get to Florida in a minute here,
yeah,
but yeah,
but
no, I
I'm just
agree.
saying
That's
It's I mean, it's not compared to OU's schedule for the new guys coming in, it's not as tough.
No,
But I mean,
but
it's still a gauntlet.
it
It's still
is.
a gauntlet.
It's a gauntlet, and so they'll have to prove it. They're going to have to earn it,
Yeah,
if in their first year in
for
the
sure.
SEC. But definitely a team with enough
Hmm.
talent and a good enough coach that they can win
Yeah,
it. They can come in and win the league their
I
first
mean,
year. Would not shock me if
they
they did.
could.
Um,
Wouldn't shock me. But yeah.
we'll move on to a team not on the Longhorn schedule and the last team in this tier, Ole Miss. Lane is
Hmm.
he's got these guys almost right there. They're at the point where they're
Hmm.
basically they're the losses they have are Alabama, Georgia. 22 was a down year. The 5 losses that year, but you go back to 21 and same thing. Their 2 losses are a road game at Alabama, a road game at a ranked Auburn team. Um,
Hmm.
so my question for Ole Miss this year is: are they ready to make that leap? Are they now with the 12-team playoff? It would seem like they have to make it. To really get to that next level. And so, yeah, do you think they're ready for that?
I do. I mean, I think the biggest thing for Lane Kiffin, we talked about it many times, is for whatever reason, things just didn't go right against Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like, we've seen at times outside that 20 game where the offense came up flat, and we
Mm-hmm.
were kind of shocked at times. What is Lane doing?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the couple years ago, the bring your popcorn,
Yeah.
and we slaughtered them.
Popcorn did
And
not
I was
pop.
worried. I was worried that day, honestly, coming into that game. I mean, our defense looked pretty bad up to that point, and man, and we held our own. Last year, their first half, I was like, man, they're gonna, they had a quick score, I believe, and then was like, oh wow, and then they didn't really do anything the rest of the day on the offensive side. I think is him not facing Nick Saban, not playing Alabama at all, is huge for Ole Miss. Um, because of course that's been his biggest thing is he can't beat Nick Saban. Then have to face Nick Saban at all, probably not Alabama at all, unless we meet somewhere in the playoff or the SEC championship game.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself is huge for Ole Miss. Yeah, but I mean, I don't think there's ever been hype for Ole Miss like there is this year in their tenure in their history,
No, and
and
he
rightfully so. I mean,
he went out and did the smart thing too. He really hit that transfer portal and addressed their
they did.
defense. Their
Yeah.
defensive line was a deficiency last year. They really addressed that.
Hmm.
We know they're going to be good on offense. Losing Quinshawn Judkins, of course, is a huge
Hurts a little bit.
loss.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that we probably um, should have get Mal on here to really talk through the Ole Miss team. But
Right.
they've got talent, they got weapons, they've got a favorable schedule. I mean,
Hmm.
their schedule:
They do.
Furman, Middle Tennessee, at Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, at South
Hmm.
Carolina, at LSU. Bye week, Oklahoma at Arkansas, Georgia, bye week at Florida, and then the Egg Bowl. Um, Absolutely should be starting at least 6-0 heading into that LSU game
Oh,
October
for sure.
12th. Yeah, no doubt. Now that the back half, it gets a lot tougher. You
It does.
got to host Oklahoma, you got to host Georgia. That's your big one. Obviously, if you can finally get that caliber of win over, if they can upset Georgia, that's, I think. But even so, if you lose that, this is a schedule you could see them definitely going 10-2 again, maybe even 11-1.
Right. Very well could be 11 and
They
1.
absolutely could make the SEC title game for which would be the first time, and the program's done that.
Hmm.
I think you keyed on it. What you said. This is kind of one of those if not now, then when years for Ole Miss.
Right.
Um,
They definitely have. This is definitely the schedule that they need
yeah.
to do that. I mean, I said should be going into that night game against and Baton Rouge undefeated. And very well could be both teams coming into that game undefeated. Honestly,
Yeah. Um,
so that could be
well,
October 12th is quite the day in college football if you're looking at
hmm
the overall schedule. So, but
well, let's
yeah, this is their time.
let's use that, and let's jump to our tier 2 now. This
Hmm.
is a tier. This would be all of these teams are capable of making a run to the SEC title game. They're definitely capable of
Mm-hmm.
beating anybody in the conference. They're just a step
Mm-hmm.
below that first tier for me. So I have in this tier Oklahoma, Missouri, LSU, and Tennessee. Um,
Yep.
we'll start with LSU because you mentioned them there. The reason, and you said you would maybe have them in your tier one. The reason I'd bump them down, they just losing Daniels, Neighbors, and Thomas has just
Mm-hmm.
a ton of production lost. I mean, Jalen Daniel,
Yeah,
we talked
I
about
guess.
him, Jaden Daniels, with his literal video game stats. You know, it's an overused phrase, and people use it for 300-yard games. No, he was doing
A
400 in the air, 200
lot.
running, 7 touchdown
Yeah,
games.
crazy,
Literal
crazy
PlayStation numbers.
stats.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then obviously his two receivers, they were catching a lot of those balls. I just think that's just so much to replace.
Right.
Garrett
It is.
Nussmeier is coming in. Uh, he knows the offense. He's been in the system. Of course,
He's a talented guy.
he's very talented. Of course, no one is going to be Jaden Daniels. He's one of those rare
Mm.
athletes.
Right.
But yeah, it's a interesting schedule for LSU too. They start with a neutral site game against USC in Las Vegas. Then they have Nichols at South Carolina, UCLA for another Pac-10 team, South Alabama. So that's easy 5-0 right there. And then they have a bye week before the
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss game. Or sorry, I shouldn't say an easy 5-0, but they should. I'll tell you what, that
It
LSU
should.
that
It should
LSU
be.
USC game is going to be interesting because those are two teams with great offenses with little to no defense last year.
Right. Yeah, that is true. But a lot of questions about USC. I think that's just a game in itself, just to see what they are this
Mm-hmm.
year. Of course, Caleb Williams no longer there. Still a very talented bunch.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll know a lot more about LSU after that Week 1 game. But yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't, like you said, I wouldn't say necessarily easy, but there's I would be kind of shocked if if they're not undefeated. Both them and Ole Miss
Mm-hmm.
going into that October 12th game. You
Yeah.
would think game day's there. You would think it's the biggest game of the weekend.
Yeah. And then after
Get
that,
close to it.
speaking of games in weird places, now they go at Arkansas, the Golden Boot, and
Yeah,
that's a tough stretch
you
right
see
here.
that.
They get Ole Miss at home, then they go at Arkansas, and then at
Mm-hmm.
Texas A&M the next week.
Mm-hmm.
And
Texas A&M has been a tough spot they've had some tough games in College Station.
absolutely, yeah,
Since they,
I think they've lost their
was it
last 3 trips to their College Station. Yeah.
because they had that crazy they lost that crazy what was it 7 overtimes against the
Mm-hmm.
Aggies. And then of course after they beat us, went in the College Station and when A&M was bad and lost that game somehow before the SEC championship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2 years ago. So they've had their struggles at Kyle Field for sure. But yeah, then that and then us, then at Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Never easy to go into. We know that that's a underrated rivalry in a sense. Florida LSU's had some great games over there. But going into the swamp is always a tough thing. Then you Vanderbilt, and then you end the season. OU comes to town,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something new. But that's never easy out to play the Sooners.
No, yeah, and that's an interesting, late season game.
Yeah,
You mentioned that's a tricky road schedule too. Only 4 games, but you
it
go
is.
at South Carolina. That's your first SEC game. At
You know that place
Arkansas.
can get crazy
Yeah.
when South Carolina's playing good, man. That stadium rocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At
Once that
Arkansas, we
sandstorm gets
mentioned.
going,
Oh man, who? Yeah.
yeah,
At Arkansas is a rivalry game. At Texas A&M is,
yeah,
like you said, that's a weird place for them. And then at Florida, which Florida's, who knows, but if they're a good team, they'll be rolling by them, and that's always the
hmm
swamp's not an easy place to play
the
either.
swamp's not easy going.
No,
Right.
yeah, but yeah, I think that's the only reason. LSU is obviously an immensely talented team. They're always going to have a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of talent on that roster. Uh,
Right.
it's just losing that much production. I just think they
Right.
have to show me something before I want to put them back in that top tier.
I agree.
Um,
Now, I will say I think their defense is going to be much better this year because they did get the defense coordinator from Missouri and Blake Baker.
mm-hmm,
So I think that's going to shore up some things on the defense. Last year was weird with how they used Perkins. They used him, tried to use him more in coverage, and that's not his thing. So he's in some weird situation. I think, of course, Perkins that freshman year was an absolute beast on the defensive side of the ball.
mm-hmm,
So I think he's going to be used how he should be getting used there. So. But yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be a very good team. I mean, definitely some tough games there, but I mean, I would be shocked if towards the end, I mean, they're not looking at a possible, you know, I see them 11-1, 10-2 type.
mm-hmm,
Right on that playoff cusp, the worst case scenario there. I think they're definitely a good team.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see them falling back to like 7-6 or anything like
No,
that. But it's
right.
just like I said, that's just too much production to me
A lot of
to
production.
be comfortable. Let's stay with the
Right.
Tigers, but this time the ones from Missouri. Uh, they've made a lot of progress under Eli Drinkwitz. An 11-2 record
Yeah.
last year. Got a bowl win, the Cotton Bowl. Beat Ohio State in a very sloppy, ugly game. Um,
Yeah.
their only losses last year lost a home shootout against LSU, and then played Georgia tough in Athens. Only lost by
They
9.
did. They did.
They've played Georgia tough the last 2 seasons. Almost beat them 2
Yeah,
years ago in
very
Columbia.
well should have, probably should have beat
Should
them
have
in
beat them, yeah,
Columbia.
if we're being honest. But their schedule, another one that's kind of has its moments. Of course, it's the SEC, but another favorable one. They start on a Thursday night with Murray State, then Buffalo, Boston College, and Vanderbilt,
Hmm.
and then a bye week, so they don't have to leave Columbia until October, and then they go at Texas A&M, at UMass. That's a weird trip. Um, Home
Hmm.
for Auburn, then at Alabama. That's a tough stretch right there with your
Yeah.
the SEC games anyway. Then they get another bye. They get old Big 8 rival Oklahoma. Um,
Hmm.
they'll meet for the first time in who knows how many years. Then they go at South
Okay.
Carolina, at Mississippi State,
Right.
and then finish with Arkansas. That's not the worst schedule in the world. It's got its tough
It's not the
moments,
worst.
but
Right.
you could see them. I mean, they can beat Oklahoma at home. They
Yeah.
can win those road games outside of in Tuscaloosa, and that could be they could finish 11-1. That's not out the realm of possibility
It's not.
if Drew
Surely
Lock,
not.
yeah, or Brady Cook, excuse me, if he plays to his potential. Um, and they
We
keep,
know how good the wide receiver is.
yeah, that was my question. So they've, last season they made that kind of leap. Can they keep building on last season now that Texas and Oklahoma have entered, or is this something that knocks Missouri, keeps them basically at their level? How much do you think that those two new additions hurt Missouri, or do you think that they've already established and they're going to keep growing?
I think this is going to be a big season for them because I mean, when they first came in the SEC, they made it what 2 SEC title games. But last year was the first time when you really took since they've been in the SEC. No disrespect to what they've done, but I was like, man, this is actually a decent team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For a while, the SEC was down a little bit. The East was down a little bit when they made their little runs there, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But last year's Missouri team was a legit team. I mean, interesting enough though, Drinkowitz came into the season kind of on the hot seat last year. They had that weird game against Kansas State with that last second kick, and that kind of transformed their season and turned them into what they became. I mean, Brady Cook was getting booed that game, and at the end of the season, he's the man on campus. So
Uh-huh.
just funny how things change. But I think that they just have to. I don't think necessarily the OU in Texas really hurts them because I think they've never really. I don't think that they're necessarily going after the same type of folks. They really go big in that Kansas City, St. Louis area. Is where they really can
Mm-hmm.
prosper with talent, and I think that's their bread and butter area. But I think they just have to keep on what they show that last year wasn't a fluke. That's what's going to keep them with recruits and everything is
Mm-hmm.
continuing on that and they're showing that last year wasn't a 1 year thing. They can do it again this year, and if they get into the playoffs, I mean that's really going to pop for the recruits and
Mm-hmm.
what Missouri's looking to build into. I mean, they definitely could do it this year. I mean, there's really not a game on the schedule that like there's no chance that they're going to win
Mm-hmm.
that game.
Yeah.
We hope that Alabama game's that game, but even that, you look at it. I mean, we should win that game, but you're not like, man, we're going to win by 30.
Yeah.
It's not like past years playing Missouri.
No, yeah, this is
Uh,
not a guaranteed win.
you're right,
No,
but
well said. Yeah, that's kind of a we'll see, but they got a big chance, like we said, that schedule sets up for them to keep the momentum
yeah,
from last year,
I
and
mean, they should be going into when they go to Kyle Field on the 5th of October. Definitely should be undefeated.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean, and that could be a big game.
No,
Big game.
you could argue that they could be, maybe even should be undefeated coming to
They might be
Tuscaloosa.
undefeated going into.
Yeah,
They very well could be.
um,
Who knows?
but
But yeah, they have. I think they have the talent to definitely do that. I think the biggest thing is where the defense goes. I mean, they lost some guys to the NFL, lost their defensive coordinator. That could be the biggest change in Missouri because I mean that defense was tough last year.
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I still think they're in a position to be. Yeah, you look at it. I think that they very much are right there as far as SEC title and playoff contender. And that's what I said. The SEC is going to be stacked this year. I mean, going into the season, of course, things can change as we know, but I mean, there's a lot of contenders there
Mm-hmm.
going into the season that not necessarily, it's not just Alabama, Georgia anymore.
No,
There's
yeah,
a lot of teams.
yeah. We'll move on to their Big Eight rival coming in for their first season, the Oklahoma Sooners.
Mm-hmm.
10-3 last year under Brent Venables. It's now his third year. Uh, since Lincoln Riley left for USC. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned their schedule. Yeah, we'll get into it. The conference schedule does the Sooners no favors.
Mm-hmm.
It starts relatively. It's kind of easy but tricky easy. So they got Temple to start, then Houston
Mm-hmm.
and Tulane. That's their out of conference
Yeah.
to start the year. Temple, yeah, obviously, definitely win. Houston, by all accounts, should be a win. Houston's got some talent
Right.
deficiencies they need to build up, but Willie Fritz took over the Cougars. That's a talented coach. He's a smart coach.
Right.
They don't like the Sooners very much. They could give them some trouble. And then Tulane, the
Right.
team that Willie Fritz just left, it's a solid program. But again, being in Norman, there should be a good
Should be okay.
3-0 start. Yeah, then things get fun. Then Tennessee is your first SEC game. It's in Norman. You get to host it. That's good. But we'll get to the Vols in just a second. Well, they're next up. But that's a team with a
Well,
lot of hype
that's
coming in, and your former quarterback is their head coach. He's going to have some
right.
emotions
Josh
coming in.
Heupel
Yeah,
coming back, the
and
last person to win the title for OU coming back to
yeah,
Norman. Man, if you don't play, that place is gonna be
yeah,
rocking. Especially
a lot of
if Josh
storylines.
Heupel got remember Josh Heupel got fired as the offensive coordinator.
He did. And then they follow that up by going to Jordan Hare, so they get right off the bat. Here's your first SEC game. We'll let you be at home. It's against a traditional
It's gonna be an
institution,
emotional game.
but they're head coached by a former quarterback of yours. And then you have to go to Jordan Hare. So welcome to the SEC. There is no better welcome to the SEC than
Right.
seeing whatever insanity Jordan Hare has for you. Then they get a bye.
Especially if it's a night game.
Oh, good night. Just apologize in advance to you Sooner fans. You're not going to like it. I'll just tell you that right now. Especially, Auburn fans might get confused. They see a team coming in crimson and white. Oh, man. You get a bye week, then you get your Red River Shootout, and then you host South Carolina, then you go to Ole Miss, and then you get Maine at home, nice refresher, and then you go at Missouri. And like we mentioned, that's not just a good Missouri team. That's a road game against an old rival, a team that doesn't like you.
Yep.
Then you get another bye, and then you finish your season Alabama at home, and then on the road at LSU.
Yep.
So in your first season in the SEC, you do avoid Georgia. That's about the only positive from that schedule. Because other than that, you
Yeah.
have to go to Jordan Hare, you have to go to Ole Miss, and the most hyped Rebel team since Archie Manning was there.
Right.
You have to go to Missouri, a really good team who also doesn't like you.
Then the very next week you play Alabama.
No, they get a bye. They get a bye before Alabama at
No,
least.
no, so no. Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
saw it. Yeah, you're right. They
yeah,
do get the bye.
yeah.
Still, I mean,
But then you end your season in Baton Rouge in Tiger Stadium.
the very next week after the Alabama
Yeah,
game.
exactly. So that do you no favors. You're breaking in a new quarterback. Dylan Gabriel
Yeah.
transferred to Oregon. Um,
Right.
so they do get, it looks like a guy, Jackson Arnold will be their man. You get
I mean,
Casey Thompson, a son of an old Oklahoma quarterback, Charles Thompson, is in the QB room.
right.
But they have weapons, they have um, guys that can make some plays. And then, they're a defensive team under Brent Venables. That's the idea he's trying to craft.
No,
Um, it should be an interesting first season for the Sooners in Oklahoma.
it will
They,
be.
they had that really down year in Venables' first year, but a great bounce back last year.
They did.
Their only losses were, on the road at Kansas, a good Kansas team. Probably still should have beat them, but then they lost in Stillwater for the final Bedlam game for who knows how
They should
long.
have won that. Probably should have won that game too.
Probably should have, but I
I
think
mean,
we
honestly,
all knew that the football gods, weren't going to let them win that. I think.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a crazy game, but yeah, I mean, and that's the funniest part, though. I mean, coming into the SEC, of course, Texas is getting all the hype. No, but for the majority of the time that they were in the Big 12, outside of here and there,
Mhm.
I mean, it was OU's conference.
Yeah,
The Big 12 was OU. The
absolutely.
amount of Big 12 titles that they won, playoff appearances, national title appearances. Yes, they have not won since 2000, but Bob Stoops was for the longest. The reason why he's Big Game Bob. I mean, he got he got you two national title games. Didn't always go well. He got you there. Lincoln Riley got him to the playoff a couple of times. Lost to Georgia, lost to Alabama.
Hmm.
Very well, probably should have won that Georgia game. I mean, they were up big there in the Rose Bowl that year. Um,
No, yeah, they
but
definitely blew that one.
I mean, it's not like they had one. Venables. I mean, he had one bad year, but I mean, they were in a. I mean, he had to put a patchwork together because I mean that was just the craziest situation. I mean, you don't expect your coach to just up and go like he did. What they put together, I mean, it was solid. Even because I mean, that was just a crazy year.
Hmm.
Hell of a bounce back last year. But yeah, no one really considers him as a contender, and it may very well be that that schedule just ain't gonna allow them to do that in year one. But I don't think they're getting their respect, or maybe they should. Because I mean, I don't think anybody like, oh my gosh, you very well could be a playoff team. You don't hear that like you do with Texas, but maybe they like that because they'll definitely have some motivation coming into the SEC for sure.
Yeah. No, yeah. And, they got something to prove, and they want to prove
Yep.
that they're just as capable as being one of the big elite guys in the conference here as they
Yep.
were in the Big 12. Um,
Yeah, because I mean that's will be the biggest thing is we've seen them beat SEC teams over the years, but yeah, then the people would always say, well, you can't do it 12 weeks in a row
mhm.
though. So that would be the biggest thing.
Yeah, and now it's your chance to prove it. Let's
Right.
move on. Last team in this tier, team that Oklahoma plays, the Tennessee Volunteers. 9-4 last year, a little step down from 2022. Um,
Mhm.
Last year they were kind of like the bad good team. They
Huh.
lost to on the road at Alabama and Missouri, and then lost to Georgia at home. So teams that were better than them, and then
Right.
lost in the swamp to Florida. That was a bad loss. They shouldn't have lost to
Yeah.
Florida, but
Weird loss.
a weird loss. But they bounced back
But
this year.
Florida owns us.
Yeah, it's a weird game, but they come back this year, and I think all the hype is surrounding Nico Leva. I hope I pronounce it right. He's a redshirt freshman. He actually did appear in their bowl game last year, played for it, and played very
Right.
well
Big number.
in a big win over Iowa. And he seems, if you believe the hype, he's the perfect quarterback to run Josh Heupel's offense. A dual threat guy.
Yeah.
They have weapons in the offense. Brew McCoy's a great receiver.
Right.
They're going to be a talented team. They need to
Mm-hmm.
make some improvements on defense again. But the schedules, it's there for them. It's not a horrible schedule. It's not
It's
the
not.
easiest, but they go
Right.
Chattanooga, a neutral site game against NC State, Kent State, and then
Mm-hmm.
they start at Oklahoma. Bye week at Arkansas, Florida, and Alabama back to back. So that's a big stretch right there. Two fierce rivalries back to back.
Right.
Another bye week, and then they host Kentucky, Mississippi State, at Georgia, UTEP, and then finish the season at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So I think of all the teams in this tier, they're the team for me that could go either way. I could
Yeah.
absolutely, they could beat Alabama at home. We know that. They could go on the
Right.
road to Oklahoma and Arkansas, win those games. If
Mm-hmm.
that offense is humming, they could go on the road
They're
and
gonna be.
beat
They're gonna
Georgia.
be.
We
Right.
haven't really seen Josh Heupel challenge the Dogs yet, but that's probably their litmus test. But this is a team that's definitely capable when it's in games, getting into the SEC
Mm-hmm.
title
Yeah.
game, getting to the playoff. You agree?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, they're definitely. I mean, like you said, that hype is anything real about Nico. Um, he could be something serious. You know, we just saw how good the offense was 2 years ago with Hendon Hooker. Um, took a step back last year, but I mean, the Nico, if he runs hypo system like people think he's gonna run, I mean, they could very well be putting up the numbers they put up in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
which is scary in itself because that defense has gotten better since he's gotten there. Last year defense was much better than 22's defense. So it could very well be a scary team. Now, second game of the year, interesting game against NC State because NC State's one team that people are looking at as a possible ACC contender this year. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing on the schedule, outside of I'd say their biggest thing is the Alabama and Georgia game, just because even though they won 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
still have been whooping that butt for the last you know decade and a half. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, so, but I mean, it's at Tennessee, and Tennessee very well could be undefeated. Who knows? But I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, you're going in there, they're undefeated at that point of the season.
Yeah, Nayland
That could,
would be loud.
it'd be a crazy, crazy, crazy atmosphere. 'Cause that's a stadium. They've had some down years at times, but man, when the walls are hidden and that crowd gets behind them, man, that's a heck of an atmosphere to be in.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, on
but
the banks of the mighty Tennessee River there. Um,
yeah,
let's
so
move on to the next tier. Uh,
hmm
these are teams that they can beat anybody in the conference on any given day.
hmm
Talented teams that maybe something's holding them back, a schedule or a youth, or just something's
right,
hasn't really clicked for them. Uh,
hmm
Not really a threat to win the SEC, but also teams that if everything breaks right, then yeah, they have talent. They maybe
hmm
they could make a run to the title game, or at least be
right,
a game or two away from finishing the upper half of the standings. I have
yeah,
Kentucky, Texas
hmm
A&M, Florida, and South Carolina. It was a tough
yeah,
to come to these. Um, But let's start with Texas A&M. New coach, they finally got rid of Jimbo. Bring in
Mhm.
Mike Elko from Duke. And he's a former coach at A&M. He knows the job.
Yeah.
A talented team. They Jimbo recruited well. That they
Still
never
have
had
a
a
lot of
problem
talent.
there. Yeah,
Never have had talent.
yeah. Schedule
I think Mike
wise,
Elko's a heck of a coach.
yeah, great heck of a coach. He's got some players there. Connor Wegman, highly excuse me, thought of
You
quarterback
just hope
there.
he can stay healthy.
Yeah, that's the key for their offense. He's got to stay healthy. They got to protect him. And they need to find some playmakers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's there for them. Schedule wise, it's eh, they start a good neutral game against Notre Dame.
Yep.
They host Notre Dame at
That's
Kyle
that's
Field.
that holding that. That's gonna be you.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a heck of a way to start the year.
Hmm.
They can get that. I mean, that'd be huge if they can be. I mean, with Notre Dame coming in number 7. I mean that stadium's gonna be rocking. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's a night game too. So yeah, it's gonna be a good time in Kyle Field to start the year. If they can start off 1-0, that's really gonna be a heck of a start for the Mike Elko era.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. Then they get McNeese next week. Then they go at
Yep.
Florida. Then Bowling Green, Arkansas at home, or
Mm-hmm.
in Arlington. They still play that one in
Yep.
Cowboy Stadium. Missouri comes to Kyle Field.
Yep.
Then they get a
Mm-hmm.
bye. Then at Mississippi State, LSU, at
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina, and then another bye, and they finish with New Mexico State, at Auburn, and then of course the big one, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So that schedule, it's there for them. They can make some moves there.
They could.
You
They
know,
very well
it's
could.
a tricky early slate. You could start out 1-2. Lost to Notre Dame, lost in the swamp at Florida,
Mm-hmm.
or you could
Yeah.
get two really big wins for a first year coach, and you
Yeah.
could have some momentum. They're definitely a team that could go either way from me.
Right. For sure.
But we'll move.
Um,
And you got anything else for them?
you know, I think the biggest pressure for the Aggies is the fact that not only is Texas coming off a playoff appearance,
Mm-hmm.
but now you play Texas every year.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't say that thing anymore of, well, times when Texas are better than Aggie, but you're in the Big 12, so that, we're not playing the same type of competition.
Mm-hmm.
That argument no longer exists. So I mean, now you're in the same conference, and if Texas, you know, does what many people think Texas is going to do, and come to the SEC and make the playoff in their first year, and you've been in the SEC for over a decade now, you haven't made an SEC championship game. You have not made a playoff. It's going to become, and I feel, Mike Elko might be the guy that turns things around. But there's going to be a lot of pressure on that man if Texas performs up to a certain level and you guys don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's tough. That's pressure in itself.
No,
And people
absolutely.
say that Kalen DeBoer is under a lot of pressure, but I think with how crazy the Aggie fan base is, if things go bad quickly and Texas has immediate success in the SEC, it could get ugly.
Yeah.
So hopefully you don't see that, but that's just something to watch out for.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's very little mulligans in the SEC. Um,
Hmm.
uh, let's move on to Kentucky. The Wildcats. A lot of people thought maybe they were going to lose their coach to A&M, but Mark
Yeah,
Stoops is still in Lexington. This will be his 12th season.
that he is.
They're coming
That
off
he is.
back-to-back 7-6 seasons. A little disappointing for them. Kind of the expectations they set for
Yeah, because I
themselves.
think last year was a year that people really thought Kentucky was going to make some noise. It didn't work out. They had a lot of injuries. Their quarterback transfer didn't work out as people thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of his name, from NC State though.
Leary.
Just
Yeah.
yeah, it didn't. I think he really didn't fit the system. It was just the biggest name, so they took the biggest name. I don't think he really fit the Kentucky system per se. But
Well,
this year, I mean, they got another transfer from Georgia, and the Vanderbilt guy who seems to be a talented guy, just caught up
yeah,
behind a lot of talented people.
former 5-star, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, Brock Vandergriff. He is, a very talented kid. We'll see if it translates. He'll come in
right.
and see if he can steer that offense in the right direction. They got to get back to
Hmm.
be Kentucky and just ground and pound, play tough defense.
Because that's what I mean. That's what got Stoops to be a win. Mark Stoops to be a winning coach.
Yeah,
It wasn't flashy. It wasn't pretty, but you knew you were in a game
yeah,
with Kentucky. Like it was physical. I mean, the only time that they didn't where that didn't work, of course, was against Georgia because Georgia just did. That's Georgia's game plan as well. They just had a 5-star talent.
mhm,
But
yeah,
outside of that, I mean, they were able to. They've been able to beat Florida 3 years in a row
yeah.
after a 20-some-year fall where they couldn't be. Was it 28 years where they lost to Florida? And they've overcome that obstacle.
Hmm.
I mean, and then honestly, I mean, if there's a time for Kentucky football to really shine, it's now. The basketball program is kind of in a new transition. I mean,
Hmm.
so if there's a time for them to really
Yeah, they.
shine the light on how good
Yeah, no more
it
John
is.
Calipari in the athletic department.
Yeah,
He's moved, so that kind of drama you hope is over if you're a Kentucky fan. The schedule,
right.
not the hardest thing in the world. They get Southern Miss,
It's
South
not been new
Carolina,
for them.
yeah, Georgia, Ohio at Ole Miss, then a bye, then Vandy at Florida, Auburn at Tennessee,
Hmm.
another bye, and then finish with Murray State at Texas, Louisville. So there's tough ones. It's a tough road slate. Um, and but you avoid Alabama, LSU, Missouri.
Hmm.
It's there. Yeah, I think if you're looking as a Kentucky fan, you want to see hopefully you get Vandergraff as the real deal, and then you
Yeah,
hope that you best the totals of last year. So you hope that you get
yeah,
maybe 8-4, maybe 9-3 season out of it. Um,
right. I mean, there's just certain games you can lose.
mhm.
Obviously, you have to beat Southern Miss. I mean, week one. I mean,
Yeah,
that week two, South Carolina comes to town, and that's an interesting game
yeah,
because you don't know we don't know what South Carolina's going to be at all.
mm-mm.
Yeah, honestly, um, so it'll be interesting to see what they do there. Then Georgia early in the year, but it is in Lexington,
Yeah, and
night game,
if you're
so
gonna catch them early.
catch them early.
Don't let
They're
them,
still
don't let them get
figuring
rolling,
things
getting the
out.
yeah, don't let them figure things out,
Yeah,
and that could be a huge launching pad for that. But even
yeah,
if you know, you do hope if you're, I mean, Kentucky fan would be huge if you could go to Oxford 4-0, obviously, but at 3-1,
yeah,
um, that's it's tough because you could have two losses after September, and then you really got to play on, kind
right.
of the edge for the rest of the season. But like I
Yeah,
said,
I mean,
I think if they can get to 8 wins, it's a successful year for them.
yeah, that is. I mean, because I mean, you look at the teams that I see them losing to. I don't see them beating Texas and Austin. I don't see them winning at Tennessee.
Hmm.
Toss-up game with Auburn.
Hmm.
It's in Lexington, and who knows? Uh, that Ole Miss. I don't see them winning. I don't see them winning Georgia. Kentucky, Florida. It's in the swamp. Kentucky's won 3 in a row. It'll be interesting. But yeah, but if, this year they could go 8-4. Great. Worst case scenario, you would hope no worse than 7-5, just for their, But they do have some interesting games on the schedule. But I mean, they could, very well could beat a big dog. It just depends. I don't know if I necessarily believe in it right now. I have to see it. But if there's
Hmm.
anybody that's gonna at least get back to what they were 2 years ago, I mean, Mark Stoops has done a hell of a job in
Yeah,
Lexington.
and who knows? Maybe Vandergraff has something to Griff has something to
Right.
prove against his old team.
Yeah,
Let's move on.
exactly.
You mentioned South Carolina in there. They were the team. Yeah, I really struggled. When I was doing the tiers, if I should put them at the bottom or this. It was them or Auburn. It came down to it. I'll explain that when I get there. But like you said, the biggest thing with them is we just don't know what we're getting. No more. Uh, what's his name? No more Spencer Rattler at
Spencer Rattler's no.
quarterback.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've lost.
we get Robbie Ashford,
Yeah. Oof. That could be. He's there. We'll see if he's the starter.
the guy or not. Yeah,
Um, but
I mean
by all accounts, so
they've
this is a
recruited
program.
well.
Yeah, they've recruited well. They play defense well. They need
Yeah,
to bid it better, but it's some Beamer ball. A lot of people are excited about him there. I think he's coming into his fourth season. Um,
right. I
he
think this is the kind of year when he has to show something.
Yeah, because he's
Cause
gone
it,
7-6, 8-5, and 5-7 last year. A little disappointing, but
right.
we saw a couple years ago they're capable of beating the big guys. They beat Tennessee. They
Yeah.
went into Clemson and beat them.
I mean, they housed Tennessee,
Yeah,
and that was before they were housing him before Hendon got hurt.
yeah. So this is a team that can do it. If anything holds
Shown,
them back,
shown,
they have a tough schedule. They get Old Dominion to
yeah.
start, then at Kentucky, LSU, Akron, a bye, Ole Miss, at Alabama, at Oklahoma. That stretch right there, that's brutal. That's just brutal.
And then A&M comes
Yeah, then they get a bye after
control.
Oklahoma, then they host A&M at Vandy, Missouri, Wofford, and then
Oh,
at Clemson again.
mm,
Um,
it's a very tough
so
schedule.
yeah, but I think if you're looking there, if they can get to that 6-win mark, get back to a bowl game, that's probably good for
Because,
them.
yeah,
I
because
think
that is a brutal
it's
schedule.
brutal. Yeah, it's a very brutal schedule. Um, but I think they're also a team that they can improve, and I think they might surprise a few people. I think they could get an upset
Or,
somewhere.
last year they had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, they
Um,
did. That's
I mean,
true. Yeah.
they couldn't stay healthy, and I think a lot of people had a lot of hype. I know I did. I thought South Carolina was gonna be a
Mhm.
heck of a team last year. They ended that 22 season so great with the big win against Tennessee, and then the big comeback against Clemson, and then you know big expectations. And then last year in that first game of the year, when they made North Carolina defense look top notch,
Ooh,
where they had gave up 30 sacks, and
yeah,
Spencer Rattler couldn't have time to do anything.
yeah, it was rough.
It kind of fell out from there.
They gave up
But
9 sacks. They was sacked 9 times.
jeez, yeah,
But yeah, no.
and
We mentioned they lose Spencer Rattler. They lose the receiver. They lose a lot of receiver production. Xavier Leggett. They're
hmm
all go to receiver. They
but
lose
they
their top rushers, but they get Rocket Sanders, a transfer coming in from
yep,
Arkansas. That's a big get.
Arkansas. That is a big
Um,
get.
I think it's there for them. I think it's there for them to get to a bowl game, back to a bowl game. So that's why I have them in this third tier.
Yeah,
They're capable, and I think
yeah.
Shane
And
Beamer is
then
going to be a really good coach.
yeah, and they said watch out about what's his name, Nick Neighbor, the dude that runs track as well, and
Oh yeah.
people been hyping him up for his
Hmm.
stats on the college football game, but he has speed. He's a big dude. So I mean, watch it. It could be a name to watch out for. Nick Harbor,
Nick
excuse me.
Barber, yeah, big dude, 6'5",
Yeah,
242. That's a big receiver. It's a big
and
target.
has speed like no other.
Hmm. But yeah, let's move
Now
to
in that
that.
game, he has a 99 speed and acceleration.
Oh
So
boy, love getting those guys. Love getting those guys.
yeah,
Let's move to the last tier. These teams that just, to me, no shot of winning the SEC. Don't really scare many people. Sure,
mm-hmm.
they could pull off an upset because the SEC is the SEC, but um,
Mm-hmm.
don't put your money on any of these teams. Is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
So it's Vandy, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Auburn. Let's start with the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest reason I have them here, I think they've obviously recruited well under Hugh Freeze past couple all
Mm-hmm.
seasons.
Yeah,
They still have Jarquez Hunter, one of the fastest guys. Speaking of speed, one of the fastest
yeah,
guys in the country.
yeah,
But they also still have Peyton Thorne as a quarterback, and I just have not seen it from
yeah.
him.
He's
Nothing
terrible.
about him And if you talk to Auburn fans, none of them are truly
Right.
excited that he's back either. They're very disappointed they didn't
No.
get someone in the transfer portal.
Right. And the weird thing is they didn't even really go after anybody in the transfer portal. I thought for sure they were going to go after somebody in the transfer portal. But Hugh Freeze really seems to believe in Peyton Thorne. I don't know if that's scary for us or it makes him look dumb. I don't know.
Yeah.
Has he developed that much? Or
Uh-huh. I don't know. And then it's the other thing about that is too. It's a tough schedule for them.
it is.
That starts out easy enough. You get Alabama A&M, Cal, New
Mm-hmm.
Mexico, Arkansas at
Remember,
home.
Cal gave him everything they wanted
That's
last year.
true. That's true. But that was in Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
Cal, I remember watching the end of that game. Cal had 17 chances to win that and just handed it
Man,
back to Auburn. They should have won that game.
yeah.
But then, hey, it comes back around. Auburn probably should have won the Iron Bowl, but
Yeah.
then Jalen Milroe happened. But yeah, so that's their first 5 games. Or 4 games. You could easily see them starting 4-0.
Right.
Then that's where it gets hard. Then Oklahoma comes to Jordan Hare. And then the very next week, you have to
Mm-hmm.
go to Georgia. Then they get a bye week, and coming off the bye, they go at Missouri, then at Kentucky. Then they host Vanderbilt, so come back down. A bye week, and they get UL Monroe. And then their last 2 games, they host Texas A&M, and then they have to play in Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl, which
Yeah.
Tuscaloosa has not been a friendly place for them for the past decade.
No.
And
Since 2010.
since 2010, yeah, and then that was it. And they don't, and Peyton Thorne is not Cam Newton.
No, he's
So
not. No, not.
obviously, with the Hugh Freeze offense, they have a
Mm-hmm.
chance to maybe improve a lot, but that schedule and the limitations, I think, of Peyton Thorne and who's gonna, they got to have one of these freshmen. They got to have somebody step up as a
They,
receiver.
right. Like, everybody's hyping Cam Coleman, the
Mhm.
freshman, but
Yeah,
he's still freshman.
still a lot of hype
It's
for
like
him, but
we're
yeah.
hyping our guy. We're hyping Ryan Williams, but
Mhm.
both schools that realize they're freshmen. They're built.
But
They're
they
growing.
played.
They're learning.
Yeah, and they played, the big teams on their schedule tough last year. They only lost by
Yeah.
7 to Georgia. They,
Should it be
um,
Georgia? Should it be us? Honestly, I mean,
yeah, they only
we
lost.
love it, but I mean, honestly, the fact that we had to go 14-31 on a miracle play to beat them
Yeah,
shows just how dire situation we were in.
yeah, exactly. And that's that Jordan Hare magic. And,
Yeah,
they only lost by a touchdown to Ole Miss in Jordan Hare. So
right.
I think that's the big thing.
Exactly.
Now it flips around, and pretty much all of their big games are on the road this year. So that's
Yeah,
they
so
do get
that
Oklahoma at
changes some
home. They do
things.
get A&M at home, but
Right.
that's I just don't see them with the limitations of Peyton
No.
Thorne really making
Right.
too much noise, and also with the Hugh Freeze hype. I've probably said it last year when he was hired. I'll say it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. This isn't 2014 or 2015 Ole Miss, and even then, he still didn't even win the division with them. So
And did you see his comments from like a couple weeks ago? He's like, "Oh, I should beat Nick Saban like 4 times."
oh
I'm like,
yeah, I
bro.
saw that. It's like, well, first of
I'm
all,
like,
you needed just every damn bounce to go your way in that 2015 game. Then you blew a
yeah.
21. Yeah, well, you still blew that 21-point lead that 2016 season.
Mm-hmm.
We could
But I
say a
was like,
lot
bro,
of
you
things.
really
Yeah,
said that? You really said like that's what you? So
yeah.
yeah.
It's like,
So at the end of the day, it was the most Auburn thing ever. Pretty much, I lived to beat Alabama, Nick Saban,
mhm.
which we which we expect from Auburn. I mean, that's just what they do. I mean, their thing is to beat Alabama. I mean, he fits perfectly for that.
Mhm.
But, bro, don't you did you want to fall into the stereotype already?
But and also Nick Saban's retired, so who cares what you almost should have, could
Yeah,
have, would have. You didn't, and
yeah,
you've
yeah.
lost to New Mexico State 2 times in a row.
Right.
And guess what? Their quarterback transferred to who did he transfer to? Because he's going to play him again this year. Um,
Mm.
oh man,
And
who did he transferred to? One of
who
these
did he go?
SEC teams, and
He did.
I think he's the Vanderbilt quarterback now. Maybe.
And
I'll have to look that up when we get there. Let me see, but he.
and then The other interesting thing, they do play another New Mexico team this year. It's
Yeah,
the Lobos,
it is Vanderbilt.
which are in the same. But they do interesting things with the New Mexico team, and now this probably won't have any effect on their game. But in general, they did get Bronco Mendenhall as their coach now
So they'll be a better
in
coach team than they
Albuquerque.
have been. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is Vanderbilt where what's his
Hmm.
name, the quarterback from New Mexico State,
And they put
Diego Pavia.
and
So yeah,
they absolutely
he will.
house Auburn.
This will actually be a chance for him personally to beat Hugh
Three
Freeze
and
for
zero
third straight because he beat them
because he
when he's
beat
at
them at
Liberty. Yeah,
Liberty. Yeah,
but yeah, that's my thing on Auburn
interesting.
this year, and as always, happy to see
Yeah,
that the Iron Bowl is in Tuscaloosa.
oh yeah.
We'll go with Arkansas next. Uh, it's just a team in transition. I think Sam Pittman's kind of he's got to prove it this year. Uh, his fifth season there, by all accounts, they love him, and he made some strides, but it feels like they took a step back last year, maybe even the year before. And then the biggest thing, they lose KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders,
Right. Two talented guys.
two talented guys that were pretty much their identity on offense. So
Yeah.
um, he's got to.
And last year was bad. I mean, they fell hard last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4-8
I
season.
mean,
A lot
really,
of tough losses too. You know,
a lot of
touchdown
big
loss to
losses.
BYU, a 3-point loss to LSU,
Mm-hmm.
7-point loss to Ole Miss, 3-point loss to us. A
Which
seven
was
to
the weirdest
it
damn.
was a weird game. A 7-3 loss to Mississippi State.
And they beat somehow beat Florida.
They beat Florida. Yeah, they turn around and go to the swamp, beat Florida, and then the next week get blown out at home by Auburn. So just a weird year, but a lot of close losses. So this is a team that has that in them. It's up if Sam Pittman can get it out of them or not. So again, I think you're hoping to get back to that at least 6-win mark if you're a Hog fan and get back into the bowl
Right.
season.
Because the biggest thing is it seems like Sam Pittman is on borrowed time right now.
Yeah, it's definitely like I said. I think this is make or break year for him, especially without. It's like, all right, how much of that was KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders when you did have your success? Are you ready to, improve with produce and develop the
Right.
guys behind them and their schedule?
Exactly.
It's so. It's
It's
Arkansas Pine Buff to start at Oklahoma State in an interesting
that's a tough
out of
one.
conference game. Yeah, Stillwater's a tough place to
Going
play.
to Stillwater.
Then they host UAB at Auburn. That Texas A&M game. Host Tennessee. A bye week. Then they host LSU at Mississippi State. Host Ole Miss. Bye week. Host Texas. La Tech, and then at Missouri. So you see, their biggest games are
That's a
all
tough
coming.
set.
It is very tough, but all those big games are coming to Fayetteville. Um.
And,
So yeah, it's
and when Fayetteville gets rocking,
yeah.
I will say that. I mean, they have a great home. They're a great fan base in general.
Hmm.
I mean, win or lose, they show up
Yeah, and you have
when they
some.
get. But when they're
You have some family ties to the Hogs, right?
yeah, my mom went to
That's
Arkansas,
right. Yeah.
so she's a big Hog fan, and um, yeah, she's trying to get my daughter to go. She said, you don't necessarily have to go to Alabama. There's other schools out there. But
Hey, man.
but anyway, but this Arkansas team, I mean, definitely year of transition. Obviously, he realizes that he needed to get a better offense in there. So Brad and Petrino, which in a way is kind of dangerous because you have to think, is Petrino trying to get back in as the head coach, or how's that gonna go? But I mean, he's a very likable coach. I mean, probably one of my favorite personalities in the FCC. Sam Pittman is kind of a oh shucks type of guy. You want to get a cold beer with him, but I mean, there's really his personality. And you would like to see him succeed, but I mean, it's a tough schedule, and they're in the transition.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get to six, I mean, they've done a hell of a job, honestly.
Yeah, no, it would be a
I
hell of
mean,
a
you look at
coaching
their
job if they get back to a bowl.
yeah, because I mean, you look at their schedule and really, outs. I mean, outside or not, honestly, outside of their non-conference games, and you can't even say that the three non-power five conference games, there's not a guaranteed win on that schedule.
No, and
I mean,
like
they
I
should beat
said,
Arkansas Pine Bluff, they should beat UAB, and then they should beat
La Tech.
La Tech.
Mhm.
Outside of that,
Yeah,
nothing
you would
guaranteed.
say you would think they should be able to go into Starkville and win, but it's a road game.
But who knows? Yeah,
They should be able to go to Auburn and win, but it's Jordan Hare. And then, like I said, they get a lot of the toughest games at home, but that's a lot of tough games. You get Texas, Ole
yeah.
Miss, Tennessee all coming. You have the neutral site game against
LSU
A&M, LSU. Yeah, sorry, I skipped LSU.
coming to
Whew,
town.
that's a tough
That's
schedule. So if he gets the
and
6
then you
wins
end
this
the
year,
year at
that's a hell of at Missouri. Yeah,
yeah,
uh,
no. So
yeah, no, that is a.
what's tough?
But you just want to see them if they, no more weird blowout losses. If they play everybody close, if
Mm-hmm.
they, if they can upset one of those teams, and I think it'll be a good year for them
All
if
right.
they get back to a bowl. Let's move on. We'll go to Starkville, Mississippi State. New head coach Jeff Lebby comes into town. This is definitely a rebuilding year for maybe a rebuilding
Yeah.
couple of years for the Bulldogs. Um,
Right.
kind of last year, just kind of the reeling fallout from the untimely passing of Mike Leach.
Right.
Just Arnett did not work out there as a coach. For
Yeah, he was in a tough situation
he was
because
he
I mean,
was
I don't think he was. I mean, he's one of those guys that would have been better suited starting if he's gonna his first head coaching job. He wanted to be an SEC head coach.
Yeah,
Honestly,
exactly, yeah.
he was a great defensive coordinator, and if he had started in the MAC or something and built his way up, you could see him possibly moving into a SEC type role. But his first time out, and that was more to keep as many people as possible together because that Mike Leach situation is hard, and they were doing everything they can to keep their players there.
Yeah, it's the
Um,
first time they missed a bowl in over almost 15 years outside of the COVID
yeah,
year. Um,
right. So I mean, it's been in a better place there.
mhm,
Dan Mullen got him back, and after that, got Leach in there. But it's a new day there. Jeff Levy, we know he's a great offensive mind. Gone completely different, opposite of last year. The defensive guy back to an offensive guy.
mhm,
We know how well his offense has been from his time at OU.
mhm,
Um, you know, and even before that at UCF.
mhm,
But you know, he gets the transfer quarterback from Baylor, Blake Shapen, who has had some great moments at times at Baylor. But he's looking to a new spot to be the guy at. You know who you know. There's many expectations for the Bulldogs this year, just because they're in a bad spot, kind of. But just
but I think,
rebuilding and
yeah, like I said, I think it's undoubtedly rebuilding year, at
yeah,
least a couple
for
years.
sure.
Like you said, they do go back to offensive minded team with Jeff Levy, which I think is good because that's really, when Mullen came in, he really transformed them into that.
Right. Yeah.
They had been kind of a defensive identity for so
Right.
long,
But
and
most
then
of the yeah.
for most of their history, yeah, and then Mullen comes in, and they get guys like Dak Prescott and Nick Fitzgerald, and they start scoring more points, and then when Mike Leach took over, of course, the air raid. Now Levy comes in running kind of that spread again. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think hopefully, I think your bright side for state fans this year is that maybe it'll be fun to watch them again, even if there's a lot of losses in
Yeah.
there, and there probably will be. It's a really tough schedule. You start Eastern Kentucky, then at Arizona State, and then you host Toledo, and then SEC play begins, and it's rough. It's Florida at Texas, by at Georgia, A&M, Arkansas, UMass, at Tennessee, by Missouri, and then the Egg Bowl is in Oxford this year. So that road
Yikes.
schedule's brutal, man. At Ole Miss, at
Brutal.
Tennessee, at Georgia, at Texas, and then at Arizona State. Who knows?
And who
That's
knows what they're going to be that.
yeah. That's just a brutal schedule.
Yeah,
They only won
it's a
one
rough
SEC
schedule.
game last year. It was at 7-3 win over Arkansas. It'll be
And
tough for
honestly, I
them.
don't know if there's a game that they win
I was,
this year
I
in
was
the
about to say
SEC.
it's tough. They get Arkansas at home, so maybe that's
Yeah.
where it'll have to be.
That's when they
Yeah.
have to. They have to find a way to win that game.
hmm
Both teams that's
But
they
yeah,
look at each other like
oof.
that's our most likely SEC win. Both teams are looking at that.
Yeah, that's rough.
Um,
Yeah,
but
so just state fans, keep your heads up, and what you're looking
yeah,
for is some fight and some
yeah,
signs that Jeff Levy was the right hire, and
yeah.
they'll be back
At
as a
least be
yeah,
competitive in games.
yeah,
You're getting housed every week and
hmm
have a reason to shake them cowbells.
yeah. Yeah, we'll end it with Vanderbilt, of course, as
Mm.
usually is. Clark Lee entering his fourth season with the Commodores. Really hasn't been much to his tenure there. 2-10 and
2 years
21,
ago was
5-7 and 22. Yeah, that was all right. And then
I
2 and
mean
10
5
again
and
last year.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Another
yeah,
tough schedule.
and
Just
they've redone the. They're still working on the stadium, I
still
think.
somehow
So
still working on
quite
stadium.
the
Yeah, I think actually a couple of these bigger home games are actually going to be at the Titans, or yeah, the
at the
Titans
Titan
Stadium.
Stadium.
But they do play just that schedule real quick. It's Virginia Tech's their opener. That's a home game. I'm not sure if that one's at the actual stadium or if it's the Titans or wherever. Then Alcorn State, then at Georgia State.
They actually go to Georgia State.
Yeah, and
Well,
that cool. If you don't know, listeners, Georgia State actually bought the old Turner Field from the Atlanta Braves when they moved into the suburbs,
hmm
and they've
That's right. They
repurposed
did.
it into a football field. It's really cool looking. I've driven by it. And then they're actually the university is going to build their baseball stadium on the site of old Fulton County, and they're going to use the home plate and all that setup of where
Nice.
Hank Aaron hit his record breaking home run there and played his years in
hmm
Atlanta. But as for Vanderbilt, after that they start SEC play by going at Missouri, then they get a bye, then they host Alabama, then at Kentucky, then they host Ball State, then they host Texas, and then at Auburn and Jordan Hare, then host South Carolina, then another bye, and then they finish at LSU and they host Tennessee. That's no favors. That schedule does them no
No,
favors.
no,
Same. I don't know where that SEC win comes in for them.
no.
Um,
I don't
I don't know if you know.
I mean, I
I don't know
guess
if
on paper, South Carolina's the easiest game on the schedule.
I guess yeah in the SEC
I
yeah.
mean, it's Auburn or South Carolina, but I mean, Auburn, I don't think they're going to win in Lee County.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Vanderbilt is home at least against South Carolina. Not that that really matters
Mm-hmm.
because Vanderbilt's far from the home atmosphere. Often the visiting teams have much
Yeah.
bigger portion of the stadium. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to see a win there. Those are really the only two possibilities, and those are kind of long shot possibilities. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I only see three wins on the schedule. Ball State, maybe. I mean, Ball State, you would think. Alcorn State, I don't know. Is Georgia State even a guarantee?
I don't know. It's it's that type of time for
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, but like I said, they get the transfer in from New Mexico State. He's a fun quarterback to watch at least. So
Right.
hopefully he gives them a couple of highlight real plays. But
Right.
folks, I think that should do it for our SEC preview. I think we've covered every team, and we'll
Everything.
we'll do our official predictions next week. Greg, before we go, is there anything else in the world of sports from this week you want to touch on?
Last night in the Cowboy preseason game, I mean, I was very impressed with our kicker, Brendan Aubrey. If you're, he spent a year in Birmingham there,
Yeah.
but he had a 66 and a 54-yard field goal
Oh,
yesterday.
hey.
Like it was nothing. So
Like this, dude. There's nothing quite like having not just a good kicker, but a top tier kicker on your team. It's we talked.
considering that he came,
Yeah, we talked earlier about Will Riker, and as a
yeah,
Ravens fan, I've had Justin Tucker for over a decade now. It's nice to not worry about that stuff, and it's nice when you have a kicker where when they miss one, you're like genuinely shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Tucker misses 58-yard field goal, and I'm like, well, really? That's weird, man. And
What was wrong?
yeah,
Did somebody hit him?
yeah. Anybody? Yeah, it's like he was fouled, roughed.
Yeah.
But
Something happened.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah. There's not much. It was the start of European soccer this week. Premier League, all that kicked off. My boys Arsenal got themselves a good win to start the season, and hopefully make a run to the title this year. Hopefully they can dethrone Manchester City, going for an unprecedented 5th straight English title. Kylian Mbappe started his career at Real Madrid this past weekend. Disappointing, they only got a draw. But yeah, fun time of year. Soccer starting up, baseball hitting the stretch run. Football's right here, folks.
We are right there.
Yeah, like I said, next week is going to be our official prediction podcast, so you can learn who to bet against. But before we go, as always, Greg, what's been done up real good for you?
I think you pretty much said it. We're almost to that time of the year. Football season's right there. I mean, by the time we talk next week, we already have official games on this have been played, so that'll be
beautiful.
That's great in itself. Doesn't get better than that. And college football is back. The NFL will be here before you know it. Very soon we'll be in playoff baseball. Beautiful time of year for sports fans. How about you?
I'll say the same thing. Just that the anticipation of football season, whether it's American football or European traditional football, if you will. Just that great time of year of, the Braves are sucking me in and out. They'll go on a little 4-game win streak, and then I'll be like, oh, maybe there's hope. And then, something like today, it's just that kind of season for them. Today they got another win, but Austin Riley got hit in the hand with a pitch in the first inning. So
of course.
it's just throwing hand too. So yeah, it's great. Super. But yeah, it's just that this time of year is great for sports fans. The weather will finally start to cool off here in a couple months. But no, it's that time. But this is a long one, folks. Thanks for sticking with us. It usually is also the longest episode every year. But we hope we covered everything for you.
We had 2 extra teams to talk about this year.
We did. 2 extra teams to talk about. And we saved it for y'all. We didn't do like last year and kind of broke down every conference basically. But we'll come back. Like I said, next week we'll come back. Our official we'll predict conference winners. We'll talk college football playoff teams, national champs, Heisman, all that kind of stuff. And then
all that good stuff.
We'll talk like sleeper teams. We'll probably give you a who we think is a champion, who we think could be a sleeper team, and maybe who will disappoint in each conference. But as always, do subscribe and give us good ratings and likes in whatever podcast platform you use. Tell your friends about us. Tell your rich friends about us, as always. Check out all the great podcasts on the Alabama Take family of podcasts. Check out the alabamatake.com. Greg will be joining us on our picks column this year. So you can see, myself.
Not to do.
Hey, man, you're coming into a tough one. We actually do pretty good in the column.
I know. I saw that.
Yeah, but
I was looking at some of y'all stuff last year. I was reading y'all's last year when y'all ran the whole championship Saturday.
But yeah, so you'll join myself, Blaine, and Mallory making picks again this year. And for you listeners and everybody, keep your eye out. We'll be putting out our usual pick'em groups. I think we'll do the usual one with the confidence points, and then we might do a special taking on sports ones with against the spread, so you can pick against us at the spread too. Probably throw out some NFL pick'ems too, just for fun. Flirted with the idea of starting them at Alabama Take Fantasy League, but it might be too late to get that rolling now. But that might be something for next year. We'll get.
All you gotta do is get 10 people.
That's true. Maybe if we can find at least 10. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, keep your eyes out for that, and I'll make posts on social media when we do have those groups and everything. And like I said, as always, check out everything the Alabama Take family has to offer. Thank you for listening. Keep it done up real good yourselves out there. Greg, buddy, roll tide, and I'll see you next week.
No time. Yes, sir.